Welcome back to the channel. In today's video are butterfly effect stories by people who were affected from small decisions they have made. My friend asked me if I wouldn't mind setting up an IRC server for him. His boss had asked him to do it and he hadn't done it before but knew I'd done it recently. 15 minutes work. The server was for a client. He said it was cool if I wanted to make myself an IRC operator and hang out on the server. I was about to drop out of university. His client and his boss was impressed enough I knew Linux and could quickly implement an IRC server, so offered me a job. My first proper IT job. Made some friends on that server, one of whom I ended up starting a relationship with. 2 years later I moved to the USA to marry her. Used my experience from that first IT job to land myself a job in the USA, and that started my career here. Got my green card soon after. Now I'm a US citizen. 22 years later, we have 3 kids and are still together. My dad died in 2005. My mom put my brother and I in grief group. She met a man whose wife had died and had his kids in the same grief group. They get married in 2009. He's now my stepdad. My stepdad introduced me to a guy who works on his job site, in 2007. I married that man in 2013. We now have 2 kids together. We also introduced our 2 best friends who are also married and have a kid. Thanks, Dad. I met a guy in line for a Radiohead concert when I was 17. We hung out all day and he and his roommate went back to the States. We spoke seldom after that. He was one of those guys with nothing about them on the internet, no real way to get a hold of them or anything. I was young and impressionable. I wrote a poem about meeting him, not romantically. It was just nice to have a profound conversation with someone, and at that point in my life I was quite lonely and it moved me. Around 6 years later, a woman messages me on Facebook and says, "When I Google this guy, your poem is the only thing that comes up, and I just left my phone in his car, and he's supposed to move to Spain tomorrow." I search my Facebook photos for that day, find his roommate, add her again and tell her what's up. She says she'll get in touch. They manage to link and he gives back her phone the same day. He canceled his trip to Spain. They're married now. My dad has Crohn's disease and he was having a flare-up. My mom wasn't able to take him to the hospital, so he asked my neighbor to drive him. As they arrive at the hospital, my dad starts trying to exchange cell numbers with our neighbor, except at that moment the neighbor started having a heart attack. They were both still in the car and it was in drive still. My dad jumps into action in trying to stop the car. It rolled into some grass, so fortunately nothing happened. A nurse was finishing her shift and saw what was happening and sprang into action, saving his life. If my dad didn't have a flare-up and need a ride to the hospital, Pete likely would have died at home. She was always on time to everywhere. It's trauma left over from her childhood. She lived in the Bronx and worked in Lower Manhattan. That's like a 45-60 a minute subway ride, so she usually had to get up pretty early to get to work on time. One night, the power in her building went out. Zero idea why. To this day she lives in the same building and no one knows why. It was the only building affected. Her digital alarm had reset when the power came back on at dawn, so her alarm did not wake her up. She woke up at 7:30 a.m., with 30 minutes before she should be at work. Panicking, she got ready and ran to the subway. The subway by her apartment was having maintenance issues and she got stuck for 20 minutes 3 stops away. For the first time in her life, she loves her job, so she called in sick, saying she won't be in the same day and would work overtime the next day. She walked back to her apartment and fell asleep. She woke up about 4 hours later when one of my other aunts was pounding on her door. She answered the door. My other aunt was hysterical because she hadn't been answering her phone. And that's how a weird electrical mishap caused my aunt's alarm clock to reset, making her late, missing her train, and avoiding being in the building next to the World Trade Center on September 11th. Before I begin, I need to share 2 driving tips my father taught me. First, when stopped at a red light, always leave at least half a car length between your car and the vehicle in front. Second, when stopped like that, slightly turn the car wheels. Both tips can help in the event a vehicle hits your car from behind. So at the time, I had 2 children, one in preschool and a 10-month-old. On Sunday night, while taking the baby from her back seat car seat, I didn't feel the lock was secure enough. My then husband watched the kids while I went and bought a new one. I wanted to check the lock, so in the store's lot, I tested it in the front passenger seat. I figured when I got home, I'd remove the old car seat and put the new one in the back. Long story, I ended up driving my son to preschool with the baby in the front seat, new car seat. After dropping him off, I was stopped at a red light on a 6-lane beltway. A flatbed trailer carrying barbed wire was at 8 feet in front. My wheels were turned to the left. A metro bus, doing over 50 miles per hour, hit me from the back. My car was pushed to the left onto a green space, past the tractor trailer, through a green light intersection and around 30 feet beyond. The back of my car, a diesel Mercedes, was so compressed from the hit. It seemed to disappear. I checked the baby, didn't move her, and she was confused but fine. I was fine. The man in the tractor trailer had been thrown through the back windows, entangled in the barbed wire and dead. First responders said they expected to find me impaled and on fire. So, because of the diesel car, my father's driving tips and buying a new car seat the night before, but lacking time to place it in the back, we survived an accident when the odds were against us. I had an internship in the summer of 2007. There were 15 of us, 12 guys and 3 women. Naturally, the women got a lot of attention from the guy interns. I became pretty friendly with one in particular, but was too shy to make a move. Towards the end of the summer, 2 of the 3 intern women here having a party on the same night. One of them was having a party where it seemed most of the guests were her fellow interns. The other party was being thrown by the one I was friendly with. It was her 20th birthday, so pretty much all the guests were her friends outside of the internship. But she told me and a couple others that we could stop by if I wanted. That wasn't my plan. The plan was to go to the party made up of mostly interns so we could get drunk together. But unfortunately, my only connection with any of those guests was their phone numbers, which were stored in my phone. I accidentally left my phone at the office, and suddenly had no way to contact any of them. I didn't know where this party was or how to get a hold of any of the guests. I did, however, have access to the other girl. We had become Facebook friends, the only one from the internship I had become friends with at that time, and I knew I could message her. So from my house I went on my computer and messaged her about her party. After an hour she responded and gave me the address. I figured since I had no way of getting in touch with the guests from the other party, I might as well go to this one. So I went. That was 15 years ago. Tonight, I'm going out after work, so I'm going to call her and tell her I'll be late. Our kids will likely be in bed by the time I get home, so I'll have her give them a kiss for me. Subscribe.